lose. Dime that.
Yellow?
Brian, you gotta be kidding me. Women's Extreme Wrestling again? How many volumes of this crap are we gonna have to wade through? Can't we do something classier like The Worst of CZW or AWA Team Challenge Series?
Now, hold on a second, mister. Oh, wait, Izzy's calling. I'll loop her in. Hey, Iz, what's up?
No. Brian, no. No more. You don't pay me enough to edit another episode of WEW.
Okay. I hear what you're both saying. Yes, women's extreme wrestling is, on the whole, some of the worst stuff I've reviewed the last several years. But I have to admit, the more I've been going back to it, the more I've started to like the taste.
Gross.
Yeah, I don't know why I said it like that either. Anyway, all I'm saying is, it's my birthday this week. I'm definitely not freaking out about that, and I want to celebrate by reviewing some fun trash. And now, you guys are part of the celebration too. Isn't that great?
Yes, regretters, I'm proud to say I'm hitting the big 4-0 this week. It's so funny, for a long time I used to think that was such an old number, but now that I'm finally here, it feels pretty good. I honestly feel the best I have in a long time. And as I reach this wonderful milestone of 40 trips around the sun, I've come to learn about myself just how much I truly adore this dreadful dreck in professional wrestling. I guess after so many years of chasing what R.D. Reynolds coined many years ago as wrestle crap, I find myself coming around to embracing it instead of loathing it. That's what the spirit of Wrestling with Regret is all about. That's why this week I wanted to make good on something I said the last time I reviewed this topic. At the rate we're going, I'll probably see you for part 4 of WEW sometime in the next 5 years, maybe? Who am I kidding? Probably 2. So we find ourselves back in the muck with volumes 13 through 16 of Women's Extreme Wrestling. It's an interesting period in their history as they continue the slow and tedious evolution from a stripper show featuring some female wrestlers to a women's wrestling organization featuring some strippers, which is kind of ironic because the better the in-ring performers got, the more blatant the shows were named. Anyone buying those latter era pay-per-views earnestly thinking they were going to see naked wrestlers on shows like Nude Sex War and Nude Takedown would soon enter a world of disappointment. Thanks for that, DJ Hyde. And I guess I ought to apologize for how confusing it's been to follow these WEW reviews over the years, because the first one I did was part 1, then for part 2, for whatever reason, I jumped ahead to part 3 of the DVDs, then for the third review, I went back to part 2. But from here on out, the timeline will remain consistent, and hopefully from here on out, we will be able to weave ourselves a nice, coherent narrative.
And let's take a look back in the past at WEW's pilot pay-per-view.
Volume 13 is titled Evolution of the Erotic Extreme. And whenever you do, don't Google that title at work, or at your house, or around people you like, or if you're alone. As our old pal Eric Gargiulo says, this show is from February 2001, filmed at the Boathouse in Norfolk, Virginia, and was apparently the maiden voyage for what went on to become WEW. That makes this the first WEW event, even though it's actually listed as the 11th show, according to Cage Match, and it's actually the 13th volume of DVDs since they ran 2 episodes before this as best ofs. You know, it's good to know I wasn't the only one who screwed up the order. It's neat to see who from this early version of the show had come back for the main run, which characters had been recast or tweaked, that sort of thing. Maybe they decided to air it late because they had to make a deadline, or maybe they felt more confident in showing it once the brand had gained some momentum. Either way, I'm afraid we're about to find out the reason for ourselves. Very, very afraid.
Sometimes, when I get bored, I like to rub my ass. But not just rub it this. You know, really rub it hard. Rub it good, you know what I mean?
Okay, that's certainly one way to open a pay-per-view.
You see these? You see this?
Okay, we're on this now. Okay?
They're of the devil. 2 years ago, I was abducted by a strange alien cult that planted things like this in my body.
So is it the devil or aliens who did it?
I have little birdies flying over my houses with cameras strapped on their backs!
It's been done.
Gargiulo reports from the control center to introduce this previously unaired footage of what he calls the pilot pay-per-view. Here's our ass-shaking referee du jour, Dina Marie. Truly a WEW pioneer.
Dina Marie skipping around here like it's Halloween or something.
Huh? Out comes another OG in Commissioner Smoke, back when this version of The Rock wasn't totally dated yet, though wasn't smoking cigars the Godfather's bit? And wow, so there's like no explanation as to why this character exists in this world or even how he became commissioner. It's literally just, here's a Dwayne Johnson impersonator, it's wrestling, have at it. Check out the Smoke spin on this particular catchphrase.
Oh, that's just cheap right there. There's no call for this.
Really, Eric? There's no call for that? The audio is so bad, even Gargiulo calls it out. The fans chanting asshole is the most intelligible part of this entire segment. Smoke declares he'll be at ringside all night as we go to our first match. Here we see the origins of the infamous May clan, the May sisters in particular. There's Ellie, whose gimmick seems to be that she spits water a lot, and Jeannie, who later on becomes Navajo. She's taken on Wildfire, a latter-era ECW alum who does the Ricky Steamboat fire gimmick, then has to stamp the fire out herself because there isn't a bucket of water nearby. Really? In a bar? Right away, we can tell the referee doesn't seem to get this whole refereeing thing, missing a fairly obvious cover and counting slower than a heel ref would.
Jeannie May with a monkey flip! A monkey flip out of a monkey!
Huh? At one point, Jeannie hits the ropes and just eats it for seemingly no reason. Then Wildfire nearly kills herself delivering a powerbomb to Jeannie as Ellie and Smoke argue on the outside because shouting at people is 80% of Smoke's offense. Wildfire wins this decent match after the slowest 3 count in history, and Eric just rips into the ref for it, which is at once really unprofessional but also pretty funny.
Send her back to Runner's World. She don't belong in WEW. No wonder she couldn't make it past the first pay-per-view.
I'm gonna beat the crap out of Pussy Willow.
The World Heavyweight Champion.
Our next match is a ladder, aka Stairway to Ecstasy match, for a mystery towel-covered object above the ring, and Ty Killer Weed is here to battle the original Pussy Willow, who seems much more coordinated and, how do I put this, more with it than Bobcat. These two do so much crowd brawling it would make The Undertaker, The Rock, and Steve Austin circa 1998 and 99 blush. As Gargiulo compares the referee to AWA official Scott Ledoux, Pussy Willow grabs the ladder, throws it into the ring, then just takes a little nap. A few moments later, Weed smothers Willow with what Eric calls a face full of stuff, then climbs the ladder to grab the coveted object. You guessed it, a giant dildo. Ty wins, but then Willow gets her heat back by calmly walking up to her and giving her a snapmare onto the ladder, then she just leaves. Amazing. On to the next match, the eternal rivalry of Tara versus Candy, only it seems to be a different Tara than the one we've known since the first official pay-per-view dropped.
Because I have this bimbo Candy in an anything goes match. And trust me, anything will go.
Whoa, Lance Storm should have taken some promo lessons from this gal. Candy wins this surprisingly passable match, and the crowd loves it. We can hope at least, since all the wrestlers' themes are dubbed over in post, meaning they used canned crowd audio whenever the music plays. But at least we don't get somebody who whistles on the loop, thank God. Oh, the May sisters are back out. Wouldn't it have made more sense to have their matches back to back? It's Ellie's turn as she takes on future champion G.I. Ho. Ho crumbles fairly easily when taking any offense. Then as she makes her comeback, she hits a flying something? A flying nothing that connected? The girls later mess up an Irish whip twice, then both collapse into a corner. At the crescendo, the Smoke gets into the ring with a chair totally unprovoked, then takes said chair into the face. We don't know how, but Ho has the pin on Ellie, and we get another slow count from this terrible referee. The music plays early, and G.I. wins.
We got a winner! winner!
The Smoke gets a stink face for his troubles, then we transition to the Maze again. Who produced this show? Were you really that short on heels? Speaking of short, their in-ring promo is cut off by Little Louie, the former King Queasy from Survivor Series 94, and the guy who pretended to motorboat G.I. Joe's crotch. Okay, why do so many people spit fluids on this show? You can't all be Triple H. He wants a match with Jeannie May, but then they stall and stall and stall everyone's brains out. Maybe Jerry Lawler imparted some of those old Memphis tricks to him back in the day. The match finally starts out with one of the worst snapmares I've seen since Dominic Minaldi took one. I love the sound Louis makes when he gets choked here. This atrocious match ends when Jeannie puts Louis in a headlock, Ellie gets in the ring, they give him a double smoosh, and that's the finish! Well, that was certainly the worst shit I've seen since, well, the last time I reviewed this crap. And now for something completely different, a bra and panties match pitting Kitten against adult film star Rebecca Wilde. Oh, finally, some porn in my wrestling, just what I was waiting for. The Smoke shows up because of course he does, but then a very gay stereotype interrupts, and I think he accuses Smoke of sleeping with him. We can still barely hear any of this.
You've been promising the girls and me a lot of things, and it's about time you came through.
Then the girls just beat up the Smoke for a couple of minutes while taking the occasional lesbian break, and the segment simply ends without a single garment removed. Ugh, well, how dare they not come through on their advertised stipulations? How will anyone take this company seriously? As we reach the end of the show, former Playboy model Heather Faith shows up and gets beaten up by Wildfire, who we already saw earlier. Then suddenly, it's Jazz! That's right, just months before ECW officially goes under, Jazz is here to take on her former Extreme rival in the main event. You're telling me that this future world champion was on the same card as Little Louie and the Smoke? The things you learn in wrestling sometimes. It turns out this is actually a flaming tables match, which isn't foreboding in any way. The fans chant "We want tits" as Wildfire hits a springboard elbow, which really encapsulates the whole struggle for women wrestlers into one moment, doesn't it? Also, Heather has stopped selling her beating from earlier and just seems to be flirting with some of the audience members. Meanwhile, the referee is going through it, you guys. Eventually, the Smoke gets the flaming table set up. And oh boy, I can't wait to see what happens. Come watch with me.
Wait a minute, Jazz has her up. She's going through the table. She's going through the... What the?
Ah, well, you know, you can't win them all, but that was pretty funny. And oh wait, it looks like they're gonna do it again. Oh boy, I can't wait. Come watch with me again.
Jazz has her up again. Wait a minute, table on fire again. Oh, she's got her in the fire.
Oh, God. Jazz says screw it and pins the lightly toasted Wildfire to win the match. And then if that wasn't enough, out comes perennial baddie Steve the Sound Guy to ensure that someone goes through a flaming table tonight.
All day long, we gotta hear about girls' problems, about the PMS, about I don't have a ride to fucking Virginia.
Yeah, dude, I know. Ladies are the worst. You should totally do something to show off how tough of a guy you are.
Put her down. Excuse me!
Yeah! I feel so empty! One more thing before I move on. I love that Pussy Willow doesn't start acting afraid until after she gets in the ring and takes her coat off. Like, oh shit, you dragged me out here for this? It's time to move on to Volume 14, which is actually the 12th original pay-per-view they did. You know what, forget it. This one's called Hardcore Booty Battle, emanating from the Electric Factory in Philadelphia, known today as the Franklin Music Hall. We're back on the main timeline now, as this show was filmed in May of 2004, airing on pay-per-view 2 months later. Oh man, we have a bunch of new wrestlers for these tapings, and we gotta get them into program stat. Quick, Lethal Lottery! We learn that there's a one-night tournament to crown the first ever tag team champions, and the pairings are decided at random. Then after that, we go to ringside for the ceremonial stripper dance, and out come General Manager Francine and her assistant SoCal Val, neither of whom could be bothered to wear shoes. Smart to do it behind the paywall, ladies. Can I talk for a second about the special theme they made for Francine here, which was basically a huge ripoff of the classic ECW theme?
Of course these people came here to see me. And even if they didn't, why make it personal?
Even Jimmy Hart wasn't that blatant. Francine explains the losing teams in the Lethal Lottery tournament will be each other's opponents at the next show, aka the matches they're taping immediately following these matches. She also announces that she has suspended Pussy Willow, the Bobcat version, not the original one, because she simply doesn't like her. The meanie. Fran also calls out the former Gorgeous George, which summons a guy named Z-Bar, or T-Bar as the lower third calls him. Z-Bar was a Philly-based indie wrestler dubbed the ultra-violent man whore, who seemed really bent on getting a particular phrase over. He introduces the gorgeous one George Frankenstein, a version of the name that Randy Savage didn't own, then declares that Pussy Willow is now Bobcat again and is back as a referee to zero reaction.
But Bobcat is still alive and kicking.
George then spears Val after Francine sacrifices her, and that's how this messy segment ends. Nothing better than a power struggle where you can't even be made to care, much less have any idea who the faces and heels are in this.
Well, ODB, looks like tonight, the well-rounded Christy Ritchie and you, we have to tag team.
Wow, what a natural interaction this is. Our first tournament match is actually a bit of a shocker, as Davey May and Dawn May are on opposite ends of the ring. Davey is paired with Crystal, while Dawn is teaming with a different woman named Crystal. It's like, there's no way they're doing this on purpose. But at the same time, they kind of have to be, right? Oh wonderful, the hard cam is tilted like this for the entire taping. You can see Papa May's life briefly flash before his eyes as he starts walking down that oh-so-narrow catwalk. Then things get really ugly when the bell rings. Ellie is in the ring at first, just gives up mid-lockup, then calls in for Dawn to replace her, who I'm pretty sure was supposed to be the one wrestling anyway. And good lord, watching Dawn and Crystal made my arms hurt. It was just uncomfortable. It was like watching somebody learn the controls to a wrestling game, right on down to setting your opponent up for a double team by mistake. Crystal and Davey hit one of the worst tandem moves I've ever seen. Then after Papa May drives Crystal Carmichael's face into the apron, she does it again to herself. After more shoddy work, Dawn hits the crossbody on her own kin to win the match. May and Crystal beat May and Crystal. Well, that was a rough way to kick things off. Pretty much everything the Crystals did was terrible. Dawn wasn't much better, and I thought Davey was supposed to be the better worker of the— Oh my god! Crystal hit Crystal with a senton off the apron and the camera totally missed it! I take it back. This match is now 6 stars. We go to Eric backstage, who introduces another mildly sexy video of a quote PWO applicant. As mentioned in a previous review, it's just some footage they bought the rights to. Or they didn't. Either way, gotta throw the sex appeal in here somewhere, right? Up next in the tournament, it's ODB and Christy Ritchie versus Traci Brooks and Angel Williams, aka Angelina Love. Wow, look at all these future TNA stars. And Gloria from Wrestlicious.
I'm Gloria, an all-American girl. I love to see the American flag unfurl.
What a nice change of pace this is. Some ladies who can actually put together a match. We get a really big edit though. In fact, I think every match on this show gets at least one. But they do keep the part where referee Bobcat counts by stomping her foot like a horse.
Somebody test our blood alcohol level.
For the second straight match, the director misses a big flying maneuver. ODB and Ritchie pick the worst time to start arguing about nothing before Angel capitalizes to win for her team. The match was a little off at times, but still light years better than the one that came before. The next match sees Persephone and Vanessa Harding taking on Mercedes Martinez and Shelly Martinez. You mean to tell me the two Martinezes on this show were put together at random? Really hard to suspend the old disbelief here, fellas. The future Ariel gives Harding a pair of reverse DDTs to win for her and Mercedes to advance. You know who I feel bad for right now? That other Mercedes we saw in the last review. We can have two Martinezes, but not two Mercedeses? In the final match of the first round, the dream team of Tara and Candy, WEW OGs and longtime rivals, are put together. All we need now is the smoke and we'll have our WrestleMania 30 moment. They mention that Candy broke Tara's neck in a match some time ago. Okay, not to make light of an injury if it's real and not kayfabe, but if this injury happened during that bra and panties match in the first ECW arena show, that would be hilarious. The two say they've let bygones be bygones, and no sooner than Gargiulo expresses some skepticism about it does Candy jump Tara.
If you thought that I was going to carry your crippled ass to the tag team titles, you got another thing coming.
Yeah, way to do that to the heel you previously injured? Candy leaves Tara high and dry as Simply Luscious and Angel Orsini, the former Wildfire, make their way to the ring. Tara pieces out, meaning the other two win by forfeit. Listen to that excited commentary.
This is huge. This is huge.
This lady dances for 2 very long minutes, but hey, it's the break between rounds, so I guess you gotta let the workers rest.
Remember, Philadelphia, we're taping a live pay-per-view tonight. We need to hear you yell and scream. If you like us, if you don't like us, but we want to hear you, so make some noise!
Why would you keep that in? Oh, gosh. Got so upset there for a second I hurt the old shoulder. In second round action, Dawn May and Crystal Carmichael take on the Canadian Connection. The Lady May dominates Brooks for most of the match until Papa May inexplicably shoves her off the top rope and costs her. Who's booking this shit, Russo? Up next, Martinez and Martinez, attorneys at law, take on Orsini and Luscious. Gargiulo says that Orsini and Mercedes are almost carbon copies of each other. Then we see exactly one move between them before, you guessed it, another edit.
Sleeper hold. It's the diabetes move again.
Oh, that's right. This is during a time when there was this kind of micro rebellion against sleepers because they were rest holds, and rest holds were considered by some to be bad. I love this finish, as Shelley has to literally change direction mid-jump in order to accidentally hit her own partner. She gets pinned and her shoulder is very up, but the 3 count goes on, meaning Angel and Luscious will face Brooks and Williams in the finals. It's time for us to hear from Commissioner Smoke again in his oversized Disco Inferno suit. Eric describes him as a former power player without any power at all. So what the hell is he then? Smoke makes the ring announcer do an all-time flinch. Ooh, bringing out some of that final boss. Seriously, if there was anyone who I would have expected to tell the fans to go home and smoke some crack, it would have been the Smoke before the Rock. The Croc does the classic heel shtick of dissing the local sports teams, then he gets really topical.
And when you fans rally up together for a stupid-ass horse!
Kentucky Derby, 2004... Philadelphia horse. Oh, Smarty Jones. That's what he was referencing there, was the name of the horse. Smarty Jones. There you go. I almost went insane waiting for Smokey to get to the point with this promo. What was he rambling about?
Tonight, Women's Extreme Wrestling pay-per-view. The Smoke has a couple of things he wants to address real quick.
Anyway, Smoke brings out a new corporate G.I. played by Dawn May, who we've already seen in action twice tonight as recently as 10 minutes ago. And is there any explanation for why she's been suddenly recast mid-show? You better believe not.
May you spend the night in Abu Dhabi, you bitch.
Let's see here. She's working with the Smoke. She's replacing a beloved character in the universe. Oh, and she's overweight. Of course she's a heel.
First up, I'm calling for a moment of silence to commemorate those who have fallen during this war.
Boo!
So moment of silence, please.
What do I do now? Boo! I think you can hear everyone's brains break at this point. Here we have this very obvious heel gimmick, and the first words out of her mouth are, "Moment of silence for the troops." Primetime Amy Lee did a similar thing a few shows back, but this is even weirder because G.I. is, in theory, a military gimmick. How are these red-blooded fans meant to react to this? The new G.I. threatens to strip, which not everyone in the crowd sounds opposed to, before Ty Killer Weed saves the day and chases Dawn Ho out of the ring. After having saved the audience from any unsavory skin, the champ gets whomped from behind by Amy Lee and challenged to a match at the next pay-per-view, aka later that same evening. Then Amy wipes her ass with the belt.
I love this guy.
Main event time as Francine and SoCal Val walk to the ring with their fancy WCW replica belts.
What could these two possibly be up to?
I don't know, man. Maybe they're just here to crown the new tag team champions? Not everyone has a hidden agenda. It's Angel Orsini and Simply Luscious versus Angel Williams and Traci Brooks in the finals. Unbelievable. They gave us Martinez and Martinez, May versus May, Crystal versus Crystal, and now Angel versus Angel. Was it that hard in the early 2000s as a lady wrestler to have an original name? Eric starts off the match giving it all this gravitas about the pain and the sacrifice needed to make it this far in this grueling tournament. Then by the end, he's lost all his juice and is barely calling anything. Doesn't this guy have a whole other show to do in a minute? There's a terrific referee bump leading to Bobcat coming to the ring, now wearing a hat for some reason. Sadly, she will not be hit in the head with a glass picture frame at the end of this episode. Wow, this finish sure sucks. Anyway, the full-breasted Italian and the woman build from the Shawn Michaels Wrestling Academy are your new tag team champions.
How do you hail from a wrestling academy that closed 2.5 years ago?
All the other women come out to celebrate with the champs like they were Dusty Rhodes at the Great American Bash. Gargiulo calls for a speech, which fortunately we don't get because can you imagine how boring that speech would have been? Wow, what a journey it's been ever since we began teaming up about 2 hours ago. Then everyone in the ring brawls just because as we close out our second disc of the evening. Even if you look past the wobbly balance between legitimacy and sex appeal, there are still lots of finishes that made no sense, plenty of folks who can't talk being given copious amounts of mic time, and story threads that don't go anywhere. These damn kids wouldn't know a wrist lock from a wrist watch. We're at the halfway point, and now it's time for Volume 15 on The Stroll to Destruction, which aired in September of 2004. P.S. The E stands for erotic again.
That I am TNA. That's talent and ability.
Oops, see what you did there, Traci.
And you let me down, and you let your country down. You don't live in Canada anymore. But that's okay. Because if you still did, they probably would have kicked you out because you're just a disgrace.
You know, Angel, I don't think the WEW faithful are quite ready for a Team Canada angle. Our opening match sees Brooks and Williams in one-on-one action as a result of losing in the tournament. Traci gets all sorts of heel heat for having the nerve to wear an oversized shirt. The stuff they do well is fine, but the botches are pretty noticeable, like when they fail to execute a steamroller spot or when Angel almost messes up the crucifix to win the match. These graphics are very pro wrestling for the NES coded, by the way. Up next, it's Martinez versus Martinez. Eric claims that these two are cousins, but apparently the ladies did not get the memo because they don't mention that at all in their pre-match promos. In fact, I'm almost certain that the stories Eric is telling on this show exist in his mind and his alone, told exclusively to the pay-per-view audience. Like, for instance, this racist-ass backstory he made up for the Martinez cousins.
Grew up in the cornfields together. They were cousins. Shelly Martinez snuck over the border and left Mercedes and the rest of the family behind to pick lettuce. And then finally, when they got over the border, Shelly Martinez stole Mercedes' husband. She tried to dime her out to the INS. She tried to expose the fraud paperwork that Mercedes Martinez had at the time.
Okay, pal, you are way off base with a lot of these statements here. I mean, first of all, come on. Mercedes Martinez with a husband? These two are actually having a good match, but Gargiulo cannot stop talking about the two picking corn and tomatoes and immigration raids in his best Joey Styles-like delivery. Like, what the hell is this? If an announcer tried this today, one if not both of these ladies would kick his ass. It almost makes me want J. Jeffrey James to come back and balance him out.
That's the worst thing since 9/11, Gargiulo!
Never mind. Shelly just kind of ignores Mercedes hitting her for a minute as she climbs the top rope, then counters a powerbomb with what Eric calls the Super Rana Express, but let's call it by its real name, the Boo-Ican Rana. Shelly wins.
And tonight, once again, Mercedes Martinez disgraced. The family disgraced.
Well, at least he managed to find his second wind.
Yo, Christy Ricci. That was quite the stunt you pulled.
Do these two not know what human interaction looks like? It's nice to know they'll both get better at this. Our next one-month grudge match is between ODB and Christy Ricci, not to be confused with Old Dirty Bastard and Christina Ricci. Eric once again gives a bunch of backstory that's never otherwise explained or mentioned in the ladies' promos. Now he's saying that ODB has bullied Ricci out of jealousy, which seems to be his go-to origin story for everyone else. You know, women and all.
Big right hand. Somebody get her some rubbing alcohol.
Classy. Ricci wins the match with an electric chair drop. Next on the rundown, Vanessa Harding versus Persephone. Washed up actress versus party girl. A classic archetype. Though I'm not sure if I believe the kayfabe that Harding was in movies. She keeps looking just above the lens. It's weird.
You had to be showboating to the crowd, talking to the ref, distracting him, and things got blown.
The in-ring quality starts to dip at this point in the show. Vanessa grabs a handful of powder only for it to backfire, but it gets no reaction, probably because the fans could hardly see her holding it in the first place. The party girl wins with a nice roll-up. A fine end to an awful match.
I broke your neck once, and I don't have any problem breaking your neck again tonight.
Hey, aren't you the babyface?
I cost you something that you wanted more than anything, the tag team belts.
God, I hate this filming style in promos where the camera just rocks back and forth the whole time. It gives me such a headache. Who's doing this?
Remember when you broke my neck? You know what? I'm willing to let bygones be bygones, okay? Because I'm the bigger person.
I'm helping.
In more ways.
It's an all-time grudge match in woostery as Candy battles Tara. The top-heavy Tara tackles to kick things off, but Candy fights back with a devastating neckbreaker.
She hasn't even been able to make love to her husband for 14 months.
If she's good enough to wrestle but still hasn't had sex, I don't think that's the injury's fault. Candy hits the rock candy bottom, but pulls Tara up before the 3. Again, who is the heel meant to be here? Was the tag team thing last month meant to be a double turn or something? But then Tara hits the STO, which for those of you keeping score is nearly identical to the rock candy bottom, but now it hurts Candy and not Tara. Just wanted to clear that up. Tara locks in what Gargiulo calls the crotch face crossface and wins by submission. Eric, what part of the face is near any crotch in that hold? Back to Eric we go, where he runs down the upcoming tag title match. He refers to the spoiled sisterly duo of Tiffany and Talia Madison as the Simple Girls, which, in the context of 2004, is a well-placed reference to the hit Fox series The Simple Life. But in 2025, at first I thought he meant something different.
They just want to come in here and get a title shot. It doesn't mean anything to them, not like it means to Simply Luscious and Angel Orsini.
Yeah, unlike our champions who were paired up at random a month ago. We hear from our tag champs, but based on how they're talking, this sounds like it was a promo for the finals of the tournament they already won last month. Angel does a rhyme about how most of the girls got their jobs by banging the bookers. They could have just as easily not run this promo, and I think it would have been an improvement.
So I got a rhyme to like memorabilia, this save it, you know what I'm saying, yo.
Good God, I hate these graphics. I hate to sound like a broken record, but they're doing a terrible job telling the viewers and the fans who the faces and heels are. The champs lean heel and come out with Francine and SoCal Val, but the mean spoiled bitches challenging for the belts are accompanied by Bobcat and George, who I think are fighting the establishment. Who are we rooting for here? The lines are as blurred and blended in as these ladies' makeup. The Madisons don't do much of anything other than get beaten up until they make a huge turnaround out of nowhere. Then we get one of the most hideous finishes you'll see all year.
Wow, does anybody see those two trains? Because I see a wreck right now.
Let's move on before I need to lie down. It's time for our main event as Ty Killer Weed defends the WEW title against former champ Amy Lee, who, not gonna lie, has become one of my favorite people to watch on this show.
Pay-per-view guidelines? What? No blood? What? What the hell kind of place is this? And anyone that thinks they have the pubic hair on their... Can't say the word, fella. Step inside the ring.
Yowee, those are some snug-looking kendo stick shots. Ty runs away and Amy uses this time to set up a table. But surprise, giant leaping sit, bitch! Ty wins the match after the El Kabong to Lee in the corner. Man, that guitar had so much of the white gimmick inside, I wonder if it belonged to the Iron Sheik. It wasn't pretty, but it was a spectacle of a main event and was probably the most fun I had in the last 2 pay-per-views. Too bad it looks like most of the crowd had bailed by this point. Now, 3 shows in, you might be saying to yourself, it's not so bad. It's pretty silly, but nothing too out of the ordinary or offensive. It's actually an improvement from before. Well, dear viewers, that's why we save the best for last. Our women's wrestlers are extreme once again and back at the Electric Factory for Volume 16, Cleavage and Carnage. Filmed in August of 2004 and airing on November 1st, it's the start of an all-new taping with some familiar faces and some new ones.
Does anybody here want to see a ref dance? No!
Out come Nurse T and Miss Bunny. Well, I guess Nurse A from the last tapings couldn't make it and they couldn't find a new one. And hey, the guy who dressed up like the Hurricane at the last show is back as Maskless Kane. That's actually pretty cool. Before the dancing gets too sexy, out come Amy Lee and the Smoke, who just casually beats up the dancers. He goes into the same shtick he did last time, only now his promo is cut off by Gargiulo reporting from the dark web. Then we go back to the ring where Amy Lee is in the midst of her open challenge, which is answered by a new girl named Summer. Summer takes a beating at the hands of her much larger and tougher opponent, but nothing nearly as scary as how she lands from this dive off the stage. Amy holds back the challenge and wins her match, then claims to be the Queen of Extreme, to which a disembodied voice proclaims,
I don't think so, bitch!
Out comes GM Francine. The two get into an argument, then they hug, and the crowd couldn't care less.
What the? What?
Yes, that's what WEW needs to be more entertaining. Another heel authority figure. Holy shit. Francine announces she's firing an absent SoCal Val, then we get another mid-promo edit. She says as long as she's breathing, the PWO will not return. I mean, this place has standards, damn it. For instance, take a look at these backstage interviewers.
It's gorgeous. Girls, what's going on? What happened out there, cutie pie? Listen, I love your ass, but the camera needs to see your face, darling. Go get showered up, baby. All right, and I want to come back there and put your underwear in the hot water and make tea.
Oh my God, oh shit, I can't hold back the cringe. Oh God, this is bad. These two bumbling boobs are absolutely the worst part of this show. They corner all the women after their matches and just perv on them relentlessly. Strippers, wrestlers, doesn't make a difference. Is this meant to be WEW's attempt at comic relief?
This is Tonto Goldstein. We're here at Women's Erotic Wrestling. I'm sweaty. I know Brian here is sweaty. Have you had any kind of steroid-enhancing perfumes, collagen, maybe labia enhancements, anything like that that I need to know about? Can you feel the desire coming off me in radiant waves of heat?
I can see the desire.
You're like a little buttery muffin. I'd like to put you on a piece of bread and maybe eat you gently, starting right in here and then maybe smelling it. I'd like to actually, this is going to sound perverted, I'd like to take your underwear and put it in boiling water and make tea.
That's right, he used the underwear for tea line twice and they used both of those takes. Oh, I feel so dirty watching this. Time for a palate cleanser as we're treated to a 3-minute audition tape for the oft-mentioned but never seen PWO. And if by some miracle you've managed to achieve an erection at this point in the show, here's good old EG to kill it.
Wow. Look at that body. I mean, just look at those curves. She's shiny and toned. Look at the caliber of competition that we are receiving here.
Up next, it's a deportation match, a 4-way elimination bout where the 3 losers are deported for 30 days, which I'm not sure is how deportation works. It's Mercedes Martinez, a woman named the Italian Stallion, friend of the channel and star of Just Another Romantic Wrestling Comedy, April Hunter, and the future first Women of Honor champion, Sumi Sakai. Holy crap, I feel so bad for her doing this booking. She looks majorly uncomfortable doing the backstage interviews. They found another way to misspell her name, and Gargiulo starts calling her Poontang partway through the match. What in the French fried fuck is he on about? Also, you might be saying to yourself, okay, Mercedes Martinez, Puerto Rico. Sumi Sakai, Japan. Italian Stallion, Namibia. But what about April Hunter? I mean, she's American. Where is she gonna get deported to?
And where is she going to get deported to? Out of WEW. You're out of here, honey.
I don't know if being banned from a wrestling company for 30 days is quite the same thing as being deported.
And she pinned her. The Stallion's gone.
Despite some clumsiness, it's a pretty solid modern style match. There is one weird part where a 4-person submission suddenly breaks out for a few seconds, then Mercedes and Sumi just let go and return to their corners. Oh, and apparently Mercedes and Shelly Martinez are sisters now, according to Eric's commentary. Anyway, Sumi ends up winning the whole thing.
She got her! Mercedes, she's going back to work in the fields.
As they say in Japanese, hero, hero.
Who'd you fight?
Mercedes.
Maserate.
Who's that?
Wax on, wax off.
Hot damn, that is just some racist shit.
How does this even work in women's wrestling? I usually masturbate quick and turn it off.
The tag team champs are up next, and I'll give them credit. Between the previous taping and here, the girls upgraded their looks in a huge way. Like, for a minute, I was certain the two had been recast. Not only that, they finally got a nice set of non-WCW tag belts. The Madisons have issued an open challenge, answered by the team of Booty Call, Becky Bayless, and Baby Fat. But wait a minute, this is just too normal. We gotta throw in some stupid shit to meet our quota.
Stevie Wonderful. A blind referee.
Well, I guess they couldn't find the other disabled people they were using in previous tapings, so they just decided to make up one of their own. Get it? It's funny because he's a blind ref who's also Stevie Wonder, and he blindly feels up the wrestlers. It's all part of the Smoke and Francine's mission to make this show as bad as possible. I'm pretty sure Tiffany Madison and Baby Fat knock heads on this neckbreaker. Then Talia Madison tries something on Becky, and time just stands still. Was she going for a neckbreaker but came from the wrong side? Did Becky not know what she was gonna do? Oh, wait a minute, that's the finish and the blind ref is making the count? Are we sure this isn't the pilot episode?
If you wouldn't mind turning around and showing the audience your magnificent posteriors. Please?
If you don't show it to us, the terrorists have won!
Seriously, did these two win a contest to get here or something?
I haven't seen double team moves like that since the 80s.
Isn't it funny hearing people from the 2000s talk about how old and far long ago the 80s were when we're just as far now from the 2000s, and that doesn't feel that long ago to me at all. You know, time sure is funny that way. That's weird. What's in my pockets? A new interviewer named Shannon Kelly is talking to a mic that's not plugged into anything and talks to the new G.I. Ho, who asserts that she is the one true version.
You and I have seen each other several times before, and that ain't gonna happen no more what's been happening then.
But I don't like it when things aren't going my way.
Main event time. Big fight feel as Ty Weed defends her title against the faux Ho. Dawn May is part of the Ho haters now and is holding a belt of her own, which we'll get into later. She's flanked by Francine, Amy Lee, and Smoke, who has suddenly changed into his post-breast reduction surgery 99 Rumble attire. You know, The Rock had changed his look a little by 2004. We have both referees in this match, which leads to more blind shenanigans. At one point, Dawn goes for the stink face, but Ty gets a gas mask on at the last second to block it. Gotta love cartoon stoner logic. But then, oh shit, Bobcat and the Gorgeous One show up in PWO colors. Finally, after like 8 shows and a million mentions, the PWO is back. Dawn busts out the pendulum on the champ, the most impressive move I've seen all match, then goes to cover Weed. The blind referee misses the foot on the ropes and is still able to count the 3. The fix was in and the baddies have seemingly won. Then after a lot of standing around and shouting and no communication between anyone, the match is restarted. Ty comes back and takes out her opponent with the topless leg drop to win and retain. Oh, but what's this? More than 10 minutes of runtime left? God only knows where this is going. After Ty leaves, Dawn May is back on the mic and says that her losing the world title match doesn't matter because she has her own title now, the hardcore belt. Glad to know this match was pointless. But then the G.I. Ho music plays again and out comes the real G.I. Ho. That's right, the original, the genuine article, Okay. Either she's had an unreal amount of work done, or that's not the original either. Not only that, this new woman is somehow worse than the OG Ho-G. She's falling out of her top as she and Dawn May have a cat fight, then just keeps shittily whipping her into corners and falling over herself before covering May to win this impromptu match and the title. What the hell did I just witness?
Often imitated, but never duplicated.
It's literally a different person. You're showing off 2 of her imitators right now.
It's like Fallujah in there right now.
But nope, the show's still not over. Our court jesters make fun of Dawn May for losing twice, then we get the best moment they're involved in all episode.
I am here in WEW.
Oh, jeez.
To take on anybody.
That was not a rehearsal.
Then things finally wrap up with a word from the new G.I. Ho, who starts tearing her shirt just as the show cuts to black. Oh dang, is that ever a disappointment? This last episode was easily the worst of the batch. It seems that between the previous taping and this one, they backtracked on the wrestling and ramped up the trash once again. Who knows what happened to the original G.I. Ho, but man, what a weird way to reboot the character in the midst of all these other workers coming in to actually wrestle. And boy, do I feel for those ladies most of all.
There's a company that we worked for, WEW. It was Women's Extreme Wrestling, but at first it was called Women's Erotic Wrestling. We had to kind of draw the line and say, hey, we're wrestlers, where you don't treat us like you're strippers.
But the more I watch these, the more I've come to accept just what a guilty pleasure Women's Extreme Wrestling is for me. Yes, it's sleazy and cringeworthy and sets female wrestlers back at least 2 decades, but damn it if it isn't hilarious to watch for all the screw-ups, the bewildering storylines, the poor acting, and for just how badly a lot of this has aged. If you're a masochist like me, then take these baddies for a whirl. Well, speaking of aged, I guess it's time for me to wrap up this birthday celebration of my own creation. Thank you for indulging me, regretters. What did you think of this review? Let me know in the comments section below. Be sure to give the video a thumbs up if you like it, subscribe to Wrestling with Regret, hit that bell icon for all the notifications. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.